All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the North Carolina Marine Debris Symposium. We are getting ready to start our Collaborative Island Solutions panel. I got to tell you, I really, for those of us that are in North Carolina, I really wish we had some island temperatures, but maybe Bill over in the Caymans can send some warm vibes our way. All right, Heather, I'm going to let you kick it off.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to find my mouse. Okay, great. So as Lisa mentioned, this is the Island Solutions. And so, in this morning's session, one of the themes that we heard was about solutions to marine debris and plastic pollution and how those are varied and sometimes they're locale dependent. So this afternoon, as Lisa mentioned, we're going to be traveling to the islands to hear about some of those local solutions. We're going to start off with Blada, with K Blada Recycling, and Nalange Sincere with Valplast. And we're going to hear about what's happened in Haiti to kind of shift from collection and recovery to all that plus a market for a product locally. Then we're going to hear from Bill Lamont with Plastic Free Caymans, who's going to tell us about his efforts in the Cayman Islands to understand the scope of the impact of plastic pollution and then how to use that to help different stakeholders understand their roles in solutions. And then we're going to hear from our own Lisa Ryder, who's going to tell us about a project on Little Cayman Island with her consultation company called One Coastal Nation. And then we're going to wrap it up with Matt Coyle with Coyle Solar, who's going to tell us about some of the innovation he's bringing to the islands to address their challenges. And if I'm getting a sense for Mac so far, I think it'll also help us inspire us to think differently and creatively about how we affect change. So, if you've ever thought to yourself, what am I doing with my life? I want to move to a beautiful island and work on our passion project of reducing marine debris, then get ready to feel either insanely jealous or insanely inspired to pursue your dreams. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Blada and Nalange, to get us started.
So hello everyone. Hello, I'm very happy today to be one of the panelists for the Debris Marine Symposium, and I will share my screen so that I can share with you what I'm doing in Haiti on recycle sector. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, we got it.
Right. So I'm Nalange, and then I'm Nalange Sincere. I'm an undergraduate student in environmental protection in Haiti. And today, as I said, I'm very happy to present to you what I'm doing in Haiti. Valplast means valorization of plastic. We are transforming waste into useful and sustainable products. Since my childhood in Haiti, I really have a big vision. I really want to see waste recycled in Haiti, because in Haiti we have a lot of waste. I really want to live in a Haiti where waste is recycled and valorized, where the environment is healthy and protected, and where we are working to save the planet for future generations to live. Because everywhere we have waste in Haiti. When I'm going to school, when I'm going to the market, I even experience people in Haiti who are selling foods on waste. And then that really, I really felt concerned about that. And I think that I should make something. Then I should act. So I should maybe recycle plastic also in my country. In Haiti, we have toxic waste and low rates of passing. There are two major contributors to endemic poverty. And then we have 600K of hospitalization due to garbage pollution. We have 84% of unpaved roads in Haiti. And then the lack of proper infrastructure really limit access to economic mobility assets for 19% of Haitians. And we have in the country 84K tons of plastic waste a year that we are producing. and that leads to public health issues, and that really negatively impacts tourism. So what I decided to do, I really felt concerned about that. I really felt concerned about the problem of waste that we have in Haiti. And then that's why I started recycle plastic waste in my neighborhood where I'm living with my friends. We decided to recycle plastic. And you can see in the picture how we recycle plastic in the community in the neighborhood. And then from the university also, I collected plastic and then we shred them and then we separate plastic. And then that was really a way that we wanted to act and then to reduce the number of plastic that we have in our environment. And we said, why not? From the neighborhood, now we could also recycle plastic in other communities. So I decided to put myself with other young students from the university, young Asian, and then we decided to recycle plastic also in other communities. That was a way also to learn, to educate people on why it is important to recycle plastic. And then we have 3 sites now in Haiti where we are collecting plastic. But we said that we don't want to collect plastic or to take plastic from streets, from tunnels, and then still have plastic. Why not turn them into something that is useful, something which is not plastic anymore? And then this is why we make a lot of research a lot about how we can transform plastic into something useful. And that is how we bring this sustainable solution from plastic to building materials. So we collect plastic from streets, from tunnels in Haiti. We are collecting also sand from tunnels, and then we transform them into bricks, pavers that can be used for roads, house yard, parking, or any sustainable development project in Haiti. So we say, why not? Instead of working on plastic, let's work on pave made with plastic. And then that's really what motivates us. That is what encourages us of recycle plastics in Haiti. We have a lot of unpaved roads in the country, and we have a lot of plastic. And plastic is a really bad thing for us, for other species. And then we said we need to have a sustainable solution. And then that's why we create that. And we will transform them into pavers. Our pavers are very resistant also. So we are bringing a lot of sustainable solution. Our impact, what we are doing, have a lot of impacts. First of all, we are educating people on plastic recycle in Haiti for children in school, children in orphanage. We have educate them to not producing waste and then to recycle their waste. That is a work that we decided to do just to help us in the initiative that we are doing because alone will not be able to recycle all plastic or all waste that we have in Haiti. But if we have a lot of other people, if we have the other young, other children um, who are educated on plastic recycle or on how plastic or on how waste is not good for our healthy for the for the health, they will also act and then they will help us having a better result. So we are creating jobs also for this initiative, and we are cleaning streets and canals because the product that we produce is made with plastics and sand that we take from canals in Haiti. So we are producing a sustainable building material. The bricks that we build from plastic, they offer a better traction. We test our product in a laboratory in Haiti, and then they offer a water resistant and a minimal water absorbency. As I start in my neighborhood now, we have 3 sites of recycle in Haiti in 3 poor community, and we have young people who are helping us take plastics from their community. And then we test also our prototypes of papers in National Laboratory of Building Materials in Haiti. And we are educating people on social media at schools on waste management. Um, I will never able to do that or to bring this vision to life alone. This is why I decided to put myself with other people. They are from different country, and then we have Asian, American, and African in the team. They are helping me because it's not really a problem of Haiti or a problem of only one community, but it is the problem of the world. Plastics is really a world problem. And then what we really want is, yes, we want to fight. We want to reduce the number of plastic that we have in Haiti. And if we are educating people on social media, that is larger than just working in Haiti. And then they are helping me. They are putting their time, their knowledge on that. And then we are trying every day to see how we can really educate more people on plastic recycle, and maybe one day arrive to stop plastic in the world. Um, I think that each of us, we have something that we can do to save the planet, to save our family, or to save the planet for future generations. And the way that we can do it, it's really just act for the world. Just reduce maybe the number of waste of things that we are using, the number of waste that we are producing on the world, and then that will maybe help us to save the world, to save the planet. So thank you a lot for your attention. Thank you for following me. And I think that we can reduce, reuse, and recycle for a better world. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I am late, but I'm here. Is
Yes, you're back.
Heather? What should I do? I'm late. Sorry.
You're right on time, man. I don't know if you have
Am
a
I?
presentation part of it, or whether you just want to build on some of the things that Nalanj was sharing with us, but you got the floor.
Thank you, Nelange, for taking it on. And as I explained earlier to Heather and Lisa, that my work is to my eyes is wonderful, but Nelange is too. And so I invited her here to come share her work with us, because hers, as I said, is one step to what I do, which is transforming the material locally, which is something that that one should appreciate. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen too, even though I don't know how to do that quite yet. But how do I do that? Do I need to have
You should be good to go now. Thanks, Blada.
oh boy. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. It's slow. There we go. And I need to be in here. Thank you. So, yeah, my work is, my organization's work is has two branch of its mission, but have a healthy marriage between them, which is it's is uh, wow, I can't believe it. There we go. Calbada is working on combating plastic pollution and combating plastic pollution through economic development and education. And so we as I was as I started saying, between the recycling operations and education program. Our education program is working with schools in Haiti by providing them with environmental protection and recycling based curriculum to implement in their teaching. I wish I could show you my slides here, but it's so slow, it's not coming up. I have to keep going because I know we don't have a whole lot of time here. And our mission is kind of branching out into three main goals, which is providing cleaning up the environment and empowering the people and creating jobs. And as I said in early words, that our education program collaborate with schools, and that's part of our empowerment, part of the mission. And the job creation part is it come from knowing that Haiti has a high unemployment rate, and about 50 to 60% of people living below poverty, and about 2/3 of the people don't have a formal job. And so that's why we equipped, empowered, and encourage them to go out on the streets, collect plastic waste, which Kairada buy back from them for cash. And then we do all the processes, cleaning and sorting and all that stuff to enable the material to ship to its next destination, which locally we're fortunate to have some local businesses or recycling businesses who buy it from us. And hopefully soon enough, Nelange initiative, Valplast, will be one of them, if not the main one that we collaborate with. The people who collect plastics on the streets are mostly women over the age of 45 to 50 years old. And these people have only that activity as income and as a means to income for them. And that income, as they say, they use it to pay for their grandchildren's schools and we've got so much we've done in the past 5 years that I wanted to showcase here, but my internet is so slow, so I apologize for that. I kind of changed location from where I was this morning, and so yeah, over the past 5 years, we've collected about 75 tons of plastics who was going to stay in the environment or eventually end up in the ocean. And we have about 7 full-time employees and 2 part-time, but our collection
may have lost See if he comes back.
Okay, I think we lost Blotto. We may have to move forward and maybe we can add him on to the end when he comes back and joins us. And we'll certainly grab a copy of his presentation and make it available to folks as well.
Okay, Bill, do you want to jump in? I think you're up next.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Nalanje and Blada, thanks for sharing because our islands are so interconnected. I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully the technological piece goes okay. Yeah. And if you can't hear me well, just let me know. So I live in the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands has 3 specific islands. Lisa will actually be talking a little bit about this little one right here called Little Cayman. It's a beautiful place. We highly recommend when the pandemic settles down for you all to come and visit us here down in Grand Cayman. I actually grew up in South Florida and I've been living here for many years, and I as a kid, grew up on the shore. I surfed, boogie-boarded, and the sea was beautiful and the sand was clean. Unfortunately, that is not the case these days when you step into many of these Caribbean islands. Oftentimes, what's showcased to the public are the pristine beaches. However, if you just dig a little deeper, you'll see things that are not so beautiful. So basically, myself and Claire Hughes and Francella, we basically developed an organization called Plastic Free Cayman. And what I'm going to do is just show you a quick little video clip to kind of tell you a little bit about us. If I could find it, oh, right here. So hopefully you can hear this okay.
Our seas have given us so much, and sadly, we take them for granted. Sands turning into plastic, but what can we do? Plastic Free Cayman, founded by Claire Hughes, has begun the fight on our small Caribbean islands. Joined by an educational coordinator to help empower our youth and cleanup coordinators to organize our communities, we have made a difference. With thousands of volunteers, a 3-4-5 pledge to reduce plastic consumption, hundreds of tons of trash removed from our beaches, and a plastic ban in sight. We understand the importance of small steps. We understand the value of partnership. We understand the impact every individual can have. So, what's your next step?
So that kind of gives you a quick introduction of who we are. We work mostly with the youth of Cayman, educating students and community leaders on this issue to try to make a difference. Our team is actually has grown tremendously, but we have the founder, Claire, myself as an educational coordinator, and then we have a variety of cleanup coordinators and a variety of youth advocates as well. What I'd like you to do just really quick, because sometimes it's just people talking at you at these seminars, I think it's important for us to interact just a little bit. So if you could type in the chat, just tell me 1 or 2 words that come to mind when you think of plastic pollution, and that will just kind of resonate with each of us as we type in. So just take a minute, type in a few words, if you will. And as that's going, it's really interesting. I've been working with Ocean Heroes Boot Camp and Captain Planet Foundation, which are based in the United States. And this year we hosted a unified Ocean Heroes Boot Camp for all of the islands, including students from Haiti. So a few of the students shared this actually with me. Before I show that, I'm just curious as to what the words: cancer, straws, killing marine life, microplastics, threats to wildlife, sea turtles, eating plastic bags, waste, so much waste, single-use waste, consumption patterns, convenience for some, dangerous for marine life, massive issue, containers, persistence, entangled, overwhelmed but motivated. Thank you all for sharing. I think we each come with a different lens. We're all different stakeholders here, but we all have a lot to offer. So I encourage you to keep chatting away too as this presentation continues. I'm just going to show you a little quick video that or a student shared with me from Haiti, actually. I'm not exactly sure which town this is, but so just looking at that is a little bit depressing, and I would just like you to share another word or two in the chat what it made you think of, because unfortunately what we're experiencing here in Grand Cayman, we do have a litter problem on island, but one of the larger problems is the marine debris washing up from all over the place, from various islands, various countries. A lot of countries, including ourselves, we struggle with waste management issues. Hence the fact that we're all meeting today to come up with some solutions. So I thought it was important to just share a bit of perspective from our island, because we're very small, but we're being impacted greatly. So again, continue just sharing in the chat different words that come to mind. So again, it can be quite depressing, especially when we think of the scope of the problem. This picture was taken with the youth in the BRAC. Cayman Brac is one of the smaller islands. It's the outermost island, so it gets hit with a lot of marine debris. So this was after a 1 hour beach clean. These were all the plastic bottles picked up on the beach, and basically we did a little drone shot from above. The students have helped tremendously, and they're very active in the community to try to battle this issue. But it can't just be, students fighting this fight. It has to be communities coming together. So we obviously know the impacts of the problem. Obviously, we have plastic patches, their sand is turning to plastic. And our beaches are slowly being filled with these microplastics everywhere. And even our marine life, obviously with the ghost nets and even hermit crabs turning plastic inhalers into their shells. I mean, this is the reality. This isn't something that we're just putting art collages together. This is what we see happening in our environments daily, weekly, monthly. And we're trying to combat this as best that we can. We also have been really educating students on the impacts of plastic pollution on our bodies. Obviously, through bioaccumulation, we take in these microplastics. It's found in many of our tissues even today. It can be hormone disruptors and so forth. Obviously carcinogens, that's a factor too. So our main goal is to educate our communities, to inspire them to take action in those communities. So first they have to understand the problem and its impacts. And we try to host monthly or bi-weekly beach clean events, and the community comes out and we just kind of clean the beach, but it's more than just that. We tend to have an education center where we educate people about what the problem is with microplastics, how to combat it, how to make some behavioral changes, which I'll talk about in a minute. We also want every person to understand that they play a role in this. When you go to the grocery store and you're buying your yogurt or you're buying your toilet paper wrapped in plastic, we all contribute to this. So we often talk about reduce, reuse, recycle, but I think we are forgetting the most important R, which is refuse. It's really important to refuse plastic from the onset, because if we don't, it will end up somewhere. When you throw something away, there's really no away. It's in someone's backyard. My school happens to be at the foot of a landfill, which is quite a controversial topic here. And we've had many dump fires. So our waste management system is not the best, and we are under review currently. But if we just kind of shift our mindset to the refuse aspect, we each can do that a little more. Whether you're living in Wisconsin or the middle of Canada, whether you're living in Florida or on an island, it's important for you to understand we all play a role. So businesses obviously are targeting consumers. So they want to sell a product and they want to make a profit. So what we're trying to do is talk to businesses to figure out how to make a circular economy where we can get back to what many native peoples already knew, the wisdom that they had, where our environment is the key focus. And if we want to make money, we need to incorporate an important piece of our environment to do that and understand that we need to protect that environment. So there are several techniques that we're using, and I'll share some of those in shortly. And then one of the most important parts is sitting down with government officials and talking about policy change. We're in the midst right now of starting a plastic ban. It's been in the works for a while. Unfortunately, with COVID and the pandemic, things have gotten a little bit, or our priorities got shifted. And a lot of plastics have come back into our environment because of that. But we've also seen positive impacts on our environment as well. So bringing stakeholders to the table and talking about policy change is very important. And then again, every person can take some kind of action in their community, no matter how small. And this is what we really try to teach our students. So this is kind of summarizing the hierarchy as far as how we can make an impact. Obviously, we want to look for more global change and solutions, but sometimes it starts with just educating yourself. So again, adding to the chat, if you could just share, where do you feel like you are in all of this? Do you feel like you are just learning? Are you somebody who's acting in the community? Are you able to make change in behavior or at a political level, business level? Where are you? Where's your focus at? So if you could kind of add that to the chat too, just to kind of keep a conversation going. So it's not just me talking at you. That would be great. When I first started, it was more about understanding the impacts of this and educating myself about where these plastics are coming from, the impacts they have on myself, the marine life, and just thinking in terms of what can actually be done. It takes a little time to reflect on this, and I think reflection is a huge part to this whole puzzle. So obviously we started with beach cleans and we got community members involved. We've had thousands of volunteers come out over the years to help with this issue. And of course we can continue to clean the beaches, but that's not necessarily going to solve the problem. But this is the education factor. Like educating the youth so that they can make better decisions moving forward is huge. So beach cleans have been important in our process. And we are huge youth advocates. So our youth have done amazing things on our islands. And in fact, some have even become National Geographic youth explorers. So we try to empower youth to take a stand. And we, again, hosted the Ocean Heroes Bootcamp, regional Caribbean base. I can share those resources with you, but we have a lot of students that are activated and are making changes on their islands. But it is not an easy task and they can't do it alone, but they are pretty powerful. This was the actual boot camp that we just hosted in December. So we've partnered with a variety of organizations on the different islands to try to make a difference in our region, knowing that we are a bunch of small islands, but we're highly impacted because marine debris finds its way to our shores every day. And so some of the student initiatives that have already been started on these islands, some have started their own plastic-free campaigns and looking into policy to ban on different islands. The Bahamas has made great progress. Barbados is making great progress along with, well, Jamaica has had their plastic ban. They've had some issues, but again, it's about unifying our region. People have made different social media campaigns and pledges and petitions and coming up with their own beach clean ideas. But again, we want to really stress the fact that it's not just about a beach clean. It's not just about a petition. It's about rethinking the way we use plastic and how it enters our system. So how do we repurpose things? Adidas came up with a shoe that was made out of recycled plastic. We've been really thinking about artivism and how to take plastic from our beaches and put them into art. I can share with you some amazing artists in the Caribbean that are doing this, and they're just phenomenal, some of the work that they've created. So again, we've been targeting businesses specifically to kind of think about the circular economy. We've produced kind of our own bag to help with that, to get people to stop with the plastic bags and start using reusable bags. So we've introduced that into our own economy. But we've also introduced what's called the 345 pledge. Now, Cayman area code, just like in the States, every state has or every region has an area code. Our area code is 345. So we took this and we made a spin on it. We told people, what are 3 things that you can give up right now? 1 additional thing, the 4th thing that you can give up in 6 months, and 5 things that you can give up in a year. And these are all plastic related, whether it was straws, whether it was cutlery, whether it was plastic bags and so forth. So what we did was, with the help of a youth ambassador, we went to different businesses on island, and we got about 20 to 23% of our businesses to shift over to take this pledge. So this pledge is well known on our island, and most people, it can be individuals, it can be schools, it can be businesses, but we're really targeting businesses because if they don't change, it's hard to really think about our waste management scheme on our island. So again, individuals, businesses, schools, workplaces, sports clubs. So we can highlight, we try to highlight all of the different restaurants that have gone plastic free. As far as those, there's 10 different things that they can try to do. Of course, it's really, really difficult as an island that imports things to kind of get rid of all plastic, but at least these are big steps that businesses can take. And of course, we've met with government and we're in the process with youth leadership to ban plastics or single-use plastics here in Cayman, especially styrofoam, because that is a big microplastic producer. And anybody who goes on our shores and sees the seaweed, it's covered in these little microplastics. In our process, we knew we had to be flexible and the importance of partnership and taking very small steps along the way. And I can't stress enough to you how important the baby steps are in the process, because you can't just go out and say, I'm going to ban this, or, you know, all the businesses should change. It's about conversations and those little steps that you can take towards your goal. So during the pandemic, we had a lot of setbacks, but we were able to do a lot of Zoom calls with prominent people around the world, including Captain Moore, who discovered the plastic patch in the Pacific. We've also been working with schools that are virtual right now to help build curriculum to showcase the plastic problem around the world, especially in the Caribbean. And we're also thinking about various programs like Adopt a Beach, how to upcycle different trash that we do collect, the artivism, and then introducing 345 pledges to churches and construction sites, because overdevelopment is also a big problem in the Caribbean. And finally, I just ask you, what's your next step? After this conference, you're going to have a lot of information. I'm just curious, you know, what can you do personally, whether it is talking to your family about this issue, whether it's bringing it back to your business and thinking in terms of, you know, how can you live a less plastic-filled life, or if it's actually making some kind of policy change along the way. But I will say, I think that the youth are very tuned into this, and if we can continue empowering them, I think we'll have a pretty bright future. So I'll shut up now. That's my presentation.
Miss Ryder, you are up. We can't hear you, Lisa, sorry.
Yeah, it helps if I unmute myself. I was only talking about how technically challenged I am, so we don't need to hear that again. All right, thanks, Heather. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lisa Ryder, and I will be taking what we learned at the waste audit workshop from last year's symposium and putting those concepts to work by sharing some preliminary waste audit results from my most recent project, which took place right before the pandemic on Little Cayman Island. In addition to being the executive director of the North Carolina Marine Debris Symposium host organization, Coastal Carolina River Watch, I also work at providing waste audits and solid waste infrastructure assessments for coastal and island-based clients. One Coastal Nation is a mission-based consulting company that works with domestic and global partners to address coastal waste reduction and marine debris needs. Our mission is one coastal nation working collaboratively, turning waste into resource and preventing marine debris. This project was based on a request by the owner of Southern Cross Club, which is a resort in Little Cayman Island. And this audit began in February of 2020. And Southern Cross Club is really a fantastic eco-friendly resort. They really do recognize the important role that they play in protecting and enhancing the environment for guests and the residents of Little Cayman. So Southern Cross Club is an award-winning resort located on Little Cayman Island and offers barefoot elegance to not only their guests, but also their staff. So what you're looking at here is guest and staff housing, and Southern Cross Club offers 14 bungalows. Those 14 bungalows include guest and staff housing. The guest activities there include fishing and diving charters. So Southern Cross Club was one of the first resorts in the Cayman Islands to become Green Globe certified in 2010. And the resort was recognized with recertification in 2013. At that time, it was identifying Southern Cross Club as a foremost operation internationally and within the Cayman Islands for sustainability and conservation. The resort is currently the only Green Globe certified resort within the sister islands of Cayman, Brac, and Little. What you're looking at here is an aerial view of the island. The Cayman Islands are British overseas territory located in the Western Caribbean Sea. And Little Cayman Island is home to approximately 270 residents and 2,000 visitors annually. Of course, these are pre-COVID numbers. It's about 10 miles long and about a mile wide. And if you look there in the middle, I'm going to see if I can show you here really quickly. This area right here is where their solid waste dump and burn area is. I'll be talking a lot about that. And this here is Southern Cross Club. If you look over here, this is the world famous Bloody Bay Marine Park, which I highly recommend if you're into scuba diving that you take part in that. It's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, let's see. How in the world do I get that off? Here. Okay, there we go. A waste audit is a physical analysis of waste composition to provide a detailed understanding of the waste stream and identify potential alternatives to non-resource, non-marketable materials. So waste audits and waste reduction programs are important to the tourism industry, and especially on islands where tourism is one, if not the only industry, and due to island locations having limited land to provide solid waste disposal or management infrastructure. In Little Cayman, the need for waste audit data to provide recommendations to further reduce waste is essential, even more so given the understanding of their current solid waste management practices and the lack of access to contained and sustainable infrastructure, which we'll review in the slides coming up. A waste to resource audit goes beyond a typical waste sort by providing recommendations for holistically improving upon systems that impact the entire island or coastal region. So what you're looking at here, this is just an example of our process. This is a 3-step process that begins with research and collaboration with stakeholders and officials prior to the actual audit. Then the on-site audit takes place. The 3rd step includes providing documentation of cost-benefit analysis of recommendations, return on investment information, training of staff, and can continue beyond the report to facilitate next steps with decision makers. The main objectives in this process were to provide data regarding the solid waste management from Southern Cross Club and present best management practices for waste prevention. And the outcome document describes a cost-benefit analysis of the impact that Southern Cross Club in the management of waste, as well as information about the current status of the solid waste infrastructure available on Cayman Island, and kind of how that impacts the waste reduction efforts being made at resorts like Southern Cross Club. This is a sample project timeline provided to the resort prior to the work beginning in 2020. Some of the other assets provided during the process include a pre-audit presentation, which is shared online to prepare the staff for the audit to begin. Waste audit and waste characterization study documents, air, water, and soil analysis of the solid waste facility, and that was a partnership that was between One Coastal Nation and Duke University. Also, solid waste infrastructure analysis, a marine debris assessment, material elimination or replacement cost-benefit analysis, return on investment, waste reduction program report that includes any of the data and research as part of the process, a post-audit staff presentation, a community presentation that's made available. Southern Cross Club does do several community presentations throughout the year, including things like coral restoration, and they're including waste reduction presentations in those efforts now. Solid waste infrastructure report for the Office of the Deputy Premier, and then additional follow-up performance measurement assessments if necessary. So once the pre-audit research is complete, it's time to travel on location. As we learned at the 2020 symposium, waste audit is a physical analysis of waste composition to provide, a detailed understanding of problems, identify potential opportunities, and outline a detailed analysis of the waste composition. So what does all that mean? It means digging through garbage, right? So during this audit, I did study materials from the Southern Cross Club dumpster in preparation for the actual audit to be done. The actual audit was scheduled regular daily audits of waste cans at Southern Cross Club, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then begin to study the materials and infrastructure at the solid waste facility on Little Cayman Island. So on Little Cayman, the need for waste audit data to provide recommendations to further, reduce waste is really essential, given the understanding of the current solid waste management practices and really the lack of access to contained and sustainable infrastructure as described later in this presentation. And this is compounded by the amount of marine debris washing on the shores of all sides of the islands, as we just learned from Bill. So prior to starting the audit, it's also important to determine what materials needed to be sorted and how they would be categorized. This is an example of material types to be sorted. This was the actual list of material types that were sorted during the resort audit. And in some cases, this list will depend on the available markets locally or targeted reduction goals determined by the facility. So determining what will be sorted and how it will be sorted is an important pre-planning step prior to beginning the trash sort. And it will be very important to remain consistent throughout the sort once the criteria is set. And again, these are the materials that were chosen. So again, yes, waste audits are a wee bit messy, but I actually find them quite entertaining. It's kind of like garbage archaeology, if you will. And so a pre-project waste sort was completed on the materials in the resort dumpster, like I just mentioned, to determine basically overall volumes, weights, and then to adjust the material sort specifics prior to the project sort. Some of the things that were adjusted prior to the project sort were things like sterno cans and things like that were very specific to this particular resort. And again, this is by far the messiest part. In most cases, but not all cases, there is value in alternative choices, of course. And so even with the most ecological or the most eco-friendliest of resorts, there's almost always room for improvement. And we'll talk about that as well. And of course, they're not just ecological improvements, but long-term economical improvements as well. And that's where the cost benefit analysis comes in and the return on investment. So for instance, just looking at this collage of photos here, the portion control packaged peanut butter that you see at the right top of your screen, which switched to a bulk product, will reduce plastic. And for this resort, and remember, this is a 14 bungalow, including staff resort. So there's not a lot of units there, but just for that year, reduce or switching out that to a bulkier item, you're looking at approximately $100 a year just for that one switch. And the nylon tea bags that you look at the bottom there, these switch to non-nylon tea bags and even organic non-nylon tea bags. The resort is eliminating single-use plastic, and they're also saving a little over $100 a year just for that one specific brand of tea switch. And again, these cost savings were calculated specific to this particular resort. So looking here, the project waste sorts were conducted 2 times during the day, and that's after breakfast and lunch, and then after dinner on the food waste service sort. I did separate out the bar, obviously, because you're going to be skewed a lot with glass weights from that. The average results from breakfast and lunch sorts are seen here in this pie chart. It's important to highlight that approximately 70% of the waste that you see here by weight can be composted. Cardboard was calculated separately, as well as bulky plastic. And the cardboard materials, of course, could be broken down and shipped back to the on the container that brings supplies to the island with market availability, of course. And the bulky plastic is primarily plastic buckets. And the intention there is to save those buckets that can be reused for cleanup, storage, or stacked and shipped to be recycled. Another 2 to 5% of the kitchen waste can be reduced by eliminating single-use packaging. So there are many portion control, even though this is, a Green Globe certified resort, and they are very eco-friendly in terms of, providing reusable, refillable water bottles to their guests and not having bottled water and paper straws. There still are a lot of portion control single-use packaged foods that can be swapped for bulk alternatives and served on demand or placed in reusable serving dishes, which as long as this option, of course, provides more efficiency in doing so. Single-use plastic portion control packaging, of course, is persistent in the environment. And considering the current waste management practices, these items could contribute to air quality, water quality, and soil contamination, as well as potential marine debris issues. Disposable heating fuel cartridges and fuel refill aerosol cans made up about 9% of the waste of the samples. It was recommended to replace those disposable heating fuel cartridges with electric resistance elements. And I have a little bit more data to talk about in terms of the food waste, but we also recommended some composting and monitoring the food waste, which could be a program to initiate on a quarterly or semi-annual basis to adjust for sustainable cooking practices, provisioning, and of course, planning. And one of the things that we found, of course, is that on the days that they do buffet style serving for their dinners, of course, they have a higher amount of food waste on those days versus the plated food dinners. So what you see here are just a few photos of some items from housekeeping audits. You're looking at single-use coffee pods at the bottom right. At the top right, you're looking at single-use shampoo containers. And on the left, what you see there is a very large plastic bag that was placed in a very small trash can. And so it's pretty obvious what the recommendations were for those. This is our pie chart for housekeeping in terms of their waste characterization study at Southern Cross Club. The waste sorts were conducted once per day, and that was, of course, after all guest spaces were cleaned, and sorting through the waste from those 14 bungalows. The average results from the housekeeping sorts are shown here, and it's important to highlight that approximately 49% of the waste by volume is actually glass, interestingly enough. But by volume, paper and plastic, of course, take up the most of this waste stream, and single-use plastic toiletry items are found to be the #1 item that can be eliminated or reduced. We did also find that many of the toiletry items were only partially used. And what you see here, and my apologies, I'm going to try and, there we go. Okay, so what you see here is a basic example of best management practices for providing, a summary of what folks should be doing to reduce resort waste. So if you look at these BMPs separately by department, for example, when we consider management-led waste inventory development, what we are recommending is to use the waste audit report document as a guide to continue waste reduction improvements and provide performance measurements on an ongoing basis. For procurement, we see recommendations that include reducing food waste, eliminating persistent chemicals and cleaners, and selecting products with less packaging. And this just continues again with basic BMPs for resorts as it relates to housekeeping, food and beverage service, and registration. Another thing that we did find during our food and beverage audit was that by volume, a very, very high percentage by volume of the materials that we found were plastic wrap and film materials. And so the recommendations that were made there were to switch to multi-use storage containers and aluminum foil. So in addition to providing recommendations for the departments we just mentioned, an audit was also done on the resort's guest activities, including diving and fishing. Much of these recommendations were very similar to the recommendations made with food provisioning. There were some guest food items that were provided during these trips that were wrapped in plastic wrap, and it was recommended to switch that out to multi-use storage containers. With fishing, there was evidence of some monofilament recycling, but it was recommended to make that a little bit more evident for the guests that were there and kind of educating them a little bit more on that monofilament collection program. So again, the main goal for this project was to conduct a waste audit for the resort and provide recommendations to improve waste reduction efforts. But the other part of this project was to provide an assessment of the current solid waste infrastructure and provide improvement recommendations there. So what you're looking at there is the burning of solid waste. So current solid waste practices include twice weekly collection and disposal at a solid waste facility. Unlike many of the solid waste facilities here in the States, there is no tipping fee for the waste brought to that facility. So they do not charge per ton or even by volume for the materials. There is a charge for the collection and container rental, but there are no tipping fees. The waste facility is an unlined dump site with no leachate treatment, no stormwater control measures, no management of landfill gas. Some materials are separated, but most are commingled into a dump pile, pushed and compacted with very limited heavy equipment. Those materials collected at the solid waste facility include yard waste, motor oil, batteries, construction materials, vehicles and scrap metal, household and commercial hazardous waste, commercial and residential garbage. Much of these materials are being burned to reduce volume. You know, if you look at an island that's 10 miles long and less than a mile wide, it really is no wonder that you have to reduce the volume of that materials, and even more so considering the you know, oh my gosh, I'm so tongue-tied. I'm very, very nervous and excited about this project because honestly, the main thing here to consider with the solid waste infrastructure and the lack thereof is exactly what Bill just mentioned, and that is the hundreds of tons of marine debris that's washing up. I will say that there is an air curtain burner on site, but it has not worked for several years. And so therefore, you know, the burning that's taking place, as you see in this picture, is taking place open air. So what you see here is evidence of potential soil contamination from hazardous materials. And you know, what you see on the right-hand side of your screen is a barrel of, I'm using my air quotes, simple green cleaning solutions, which is not green at all. And if you think of it in terms of eco-friendly standpoint, it is you know, very, very persistent chemicals involved in that product. Soil samples were collected here because this tub of cleaning solutions was not properly emptied before it was turned upside down here in the soil to be you know, released into the environment. And so the soil samples were collected, they are being processed by Duke University. And there is of course potential ground and water contamination, not just from those chemicals, but also the motor oil and other chemical collections going on that you see on the left picture there. These are fairly simple fixes in terms of providing additional infrastructure to keep these materials from entering the environment. However, with the amount of soil contamination that we feel like is there, it will take some remediation. So what you see here is runoff from the burn area. Again, there is no leachate collection system. This area you see is adjacent to a mangrove wetland area, which in, you know, reality, at least that is a wetland area and could potentially be filtering some of these chemicals before they move a little bit further from this area. Again, this is a photo of the leachate that is not being properly managed. And what you see here is the open air burning. Materials that were documented to be burned include but are not limited to PVC pipe, aerosols, treated lumber, and plastics, which gives you a little bit of an idea of how badly the air quality is right there. Here is another photo of the burn site and one of the air sensors deployed during this project in collaboration with Duke University. So I am just going to go through a few photos of the marine debris that I saw because I think Bill just did such a fantastic job highlighting the program with Plastic-Free Cayman. And you can see there that Tamara is wearing a Plastic-Free Cayman shirt. I was able to participate in many cleanups during my time there. And it really just struck me very, very deeply how much the community gets together to do these cleanups on such a regular basis. There are folks that are working on that island doing cleanups on a daily basis. And it's like whack-a-mole. You know, you pick 2 pieces up, you turn around and there's 15 right back there in your place. And we're thinking that there were about 10 tons of marine debris that's collected on that island in particular in a year, but there's hundreds of tons of debris still left to be cleaned up. And you'll see that in these photos. So the debris is accumulating on all sides of this island. And now it's kind of easy to see like the implications here because you have this marine debris that's washing up and you have no infrastructure. There's nowhere for it to go to be disposed of properly. it is being open air burned when it's being collected. This is probably one of the worst areas that I saw with marine debris, and we did put a really good dent in that while I was there. There's just such a great crew of people that clean this area. What you're looking at here is what we talked about earlier today, and those are the plastic wrap-based water rations. So that's the bottom right-hand side of your screen. You can tell that these plastic wrap water ration has been burned a little bit. So this was on an island that was burning their waste to reduce the volume. And I did find samples of burned waste on each side of Little Cayman. I also found some samples of burned melted waste on Cayman Brac as well. And this is just an example of a recommended hierarchy. So of course, we've talked a lot today about source reduction and refusing of materials. I think that's even more important when you look at these island and coastal communities. Just consider also that procurement of different types of foods on islands is, especially remote islands like Little Cayman, is sometimes a challenge. So when you think of the options for different types of food and different types of products, there may not be the same options that you have here. And I just saw, you know, a diagram from one of my colleagues in the Caymans just recently of the comparisons of the costs between the Cayman procurement items and here in the US. And in some cases, they're more than double the cost of what you would see here, with the exception of ice cream, which I thought was really funny. And maybe, you know, I don't know, maybe Bill, if you want to live on ice cream, maybe that's your excuse there. But so initial considerations for improving infrastructure, and this is kind of just a you know, do this now type of thing, is to replace or repair that air curtain burner. And that's until you can get other things in place, you know, getting that air curtain burner replaced or repaired will be very important when you're trying to burn those items to reduce the volume. Some long-term infrastructure considerations, which many of these items have been talked about earlier today. For the folks there on Little Cayman, and not just Southern Cross Club, I was able to look at some of the food waste from other resorts. It's a high percentage of compostable material. So we do encourage folks there to develop the infrastructure for a compost facility. Considering and looking into a scaled down plastics to fuel system or another alternative solution to waste to resource infrastructure. Reclamation or reuse stations and proper recycle programs. There are some, there's a lot of reclamation and reuse going on. However, it is literally folks going into the solid waste facility and taking these items to be reused. And so hopefully there's a way to do that a little bit safer for folks. Some soil remediation, proper collection and handling of hazardous waste and containment type infrastructure would be great, as well as proper management of white goods and tires. Properly engineered wetlands filtration system might work for this area. Working with an engineer consultant right now to look into that as an option, or some type of other leachate treatment option would be fantastic. And then some policy considerations. And these are also policy considerations that I have seen Plastic Free Cayman recommending as well. And I'm so happy that you're working towards these. So things like bans or extended producer responsibility type fees for single-use plastic materials, government supported cleanup programs, litter fines and enforcement. I know that's a hot topic in North Carolina as well. Recycle options for marketable materials, and of course, school and government facility reduction goals and recycle programs. And so I will leave my presentation with this, and this was sorry, it's a little loud. This was my last day as I was flying back to Grand to get my connecting flight. This is what I saw. And this is what Bill was referring to. And this was probably one of the largest landfill fires that you guys have had in the past couple of years. And it just so happened to be the day that I was leaving. And I think they evacuated half of the island that day. I know they evacuated your school, Bill. And it's just, oh my gosh, it really, this is what motivates me to do more. This is what motivates me to go back. And this, of course, was the front page of the Cayman Compass when I got into the airplane that morning, the day I left the islands. And this is, of course, it's not the first nor the last landfill fire, I'm sure. The school just down prevailing wind from this facility is also the school that Bill teaches at and was teaching at today. Needless to say, this is definitely a motivating factor. And these are my partners for this project, which is still going on. And hopefully once we can all get vaccinated and get back to doing our normal things that we do, we can work on this a little bit more. Thanks.
That was awesome, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah, I heard about it. It was so nice to be able to see a presentation on all the work you've been doing there. That was a broad sweep. Nicely done.
Thanks. I'm sorry I can't show more. Some of it is still working out the details, but.
Well, that was plenty. Well, we're ready for the next round.
All right, I guess, am I up now or what?
Yep, Mac, you've got the floor.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Coyle, and I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina. And this is my first time doing a Zoom conference. So I'm going to try and do the share the screen here. And let's see here. All right. Do you, am I sharing something?
Yep, we gotcha.
Okay, so as I said, my name is Matt Coyle, and I'm a colleague and collaborator with Bonnie Monteleone and with Lisa Ryder. And I've been invited today to speak about a company that I work with and I own, Coyle Solar, as well as some of the partners that we have in the nonprofit sector, Clean Energy Events, the Plastic Ocean Project, Solar Water Relief Bahamas. And I wanted to include in our conversation today the topics of ecology and capitalism and the idea of using corporations to restore ecology. So we'll be touching on all those topics, but to give you a little bit more background on myself and why I was asked to participate, partially to share my story, but also to be a cheerleader for everyone here to keep going. I grew up in the Bay Area in Berkeley, California, and I've been a lifelong activist. I grew up with a picket sign in my hands, and both my parents were very active in labor and in radical politics, and they taught me to take ownership of this world and to fight for it. And it's good to be in such company today with all of you. And I thank you for all of the contributions you're making to this, to addressing these issues and to changing the world for the better. I'm also an inventor. I became obsessed with building portable solar generators, and that led me into a path of entrepreneurship. And I'm also a troublemaker and a business person. Some of the things that I've worked on in terms of environmental activism, working on the Big Green and in California, and indigenous rights, human rights, anti-war activist, a feminist, and you know, growing up in Berkeley, people often would say, "Oh, you know, that's where, you know, the free speech movement, and you know, you guys are really into free speech." But it's a common misperception that the free speech movement started there, or you know, the fight was really made there because they were denying the basic rights of free speech and civil rights. And so, you know, when I talk about the resources we can get from the island communities, it's from the very people that are facing the crisis that we can get the resources of leadership and the generation of the ideas that we need to solve the crisis. So being a troublemaker is a good thing, and we need to take that into our businesses and make sure our businesses are making good trouble, is a popular phrase recently. So. But as I said, I'm a business person, and I'm trying to share another screen here. Excuse me. Let's see here. Let me switch over here. Well, I'll just go through my slides, I guess. The mission
If
of
you,
solar.
if you hit that other one, the presentation mode next to the slide, maybe it'll, the one right over from that
Okay.
one, there you go. The slideshow one,
Yeah.
the grid to the right of the grid, it might advance that way.
Okay. Let's see. Well, no, I had some pages open I was going to try and share also, but I can't seem to figure out how to do that right now. But going back, so Coil Solar is the company. I became obsessed with building portable solar generators to provide reverse osmosis water purification. And I'm not an engineer or a business person by training or by academic training. I'm a plumber and a carpenter, a builder. But my business partner challenged me to build the solar generator I've become obsessed with talking about to power his wedding. And from that moment, it was just everywhere I went, people said, that is a good idea. And that's what became the impetus for several companies that I've had. This is the third company that I've organized to produce and distribute mobile solar generators and water purification. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is that a lot of corollaries between that experience and what we see now in trying to move towards plastics to fuel or plastics to other, primary products. The solar generator was a new class of product, but it was a product that would attack or displace existing markets. And these are the hallmarks of what's known as a disruptive innovation, something that can displace an entrenched consumer product or service with a seemingly undercapitalized and under-resourced competitor. And so that's very similar to what we're having to do to take on now. We're taking on the petroleum companies by taking their product and turning it into our own fuel sources. So I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. But what was interesting to people that, and I became involved with a lot of really amazing professional engineers and manufacturers, but I was using a process called COTS engineering, which is commercial off-the-shelf engineering or design. And my process was categorized by them as being something known as disruptive innovation. And so those are things that are corollaries to what we're trying to achieve in converting the plastic pollution problem into a plastic solution to improving the human condition. So as I started to build the solar generators, I would rent them and power events. And one of the problems we were having is that everyone kept telling me solar didn't work. This was 15 years ago. And so there was a very concerted messaging campaign to convince people that solar didn't work. And this was preventing people from recognizing the utility and the economy of it, much like we'll face with the equipment to convert these plastic pollutions into fuels and other products. But our mission at Clean Energy Events was to drive the adoption of renewable energy practices by turning events into a demonstration of renewable energy. So we would turn, say, a concert or a surf contest or any public event, we could turn it into a renewable energy demonstration simply by powering the stage and powering the production of the event. And this is what we should be doing too with these innovative products, the reactors and other things that are being developed. We have to get them out to the organizations in the field so they can demonstrate the technology and show that it is already mature and robust, right? And I keep hearing over and over again, everyone has started out with education programs. That's absolutely the way in which we get the groundswell we need to develop the leadership and the innovation capacity to solve these problems. So, and I also work with Plastic Ocean Project. I met Bonnie Monteleone, and we had a longstanding rental contract to power the O'Neill Sweetwater contest. And we would always set up a table. I invited Bonnie to come down and share our table. And that began a long relationship of collaboration and support, mutual aid and support. So, and that brings us to the solar water relief of the Bahamas. And our mission is to provide clean water and electricity to persons affected by natural disaster without using fossil fuels, creating plastic bottle waste, or generating harmful emissions. And this came out of an engineering initiative we had. We were developing and incorporating reverse osmosis into the solar generators that I manufacture. And we wanted to help out with the relief effort in the Bahamas. And we were trying to understand the economics of the reverse osmosis compared to plastic bottles. And if you'll please go to Solar Water Relief, you'll find a lot of information there about how different we can be in the way in which we respond to natural disasters and reduce plastic use and reduce harmful emissions. And part of that project, let me see if I can get this to share differently. So. Pardon me while I try and let's see.
Yeah, you may have to go out and then find it and go back in.
Okay.
I may be able to pull up, is it the same presentation from the share file? Okay, there you go.
Yeah, here it is. Okay. So
Oh, yeah,
I
there you
apologize for that confusion. So this is our company. This is the equipment that we manufacture, and they're portable and provide distributed power and water purification. They're completely automatic in function, and they operate in silence. They don't require any fuel. And I won't pitch too much here, but you know, they were made in the United States here in Star, North Carolina. And part of what the initiative is, I mentioned I'm a peace activist, and I'm working with a manufacturer here called Carolina Growler. And so we're literally trying to pound you know, weapons into plowshares and turn munition trailers into water purification and electricity generators. And so I invite you to find out about our partner, Growler Manufacturing and Engineering. Here's the website for clean energy events, and we've done hundreds of events here in the Carolinas and in Wilmington, and spread the message about renewable energy technologies. Plastic Ocean Project website, please check them out. And then also, please take a good look at the solar water relief. So when we think about relief, we often, what we understand is we need to send water and petroleum for generators. And this is the result, is you see plastic accumulation of the bottles themselves that were sent to help. And this becomes more than just a nuisance, it becomes a primary problem. And so by sending in reverse osmosis, not only are we offsetting the use of the plastic bottles, we're offsetting the use of generators and fuel. We're providing directly to people a resource that stays in their community, is community owned, and provides for somebody to have a job. And that aspect of what we were advocating and continue to push for it is borne out by the experience that we have in trying to provide water projects around the world from the UN or from the Peace Corps or from other NGOs, is that if you don't create a job, the project fails. It has to create some type of self-sustaining economic activity so that there's a community buy-in, and then and an individual at the very least is motivated to keep the equipment running to provide for their job. So you can see there's an enormous amount of plastic bottles that pile up because of the water use. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. I was working with an amazing group of people, Vivian Schweitzer and Jeff Watson. As I mentioned, this came out of conversations Jeff and I were having about engineering issues for incorporating the reverse osmosis into our equipment design. We also had an amazing advisory committee, Bill Moore and Bonnie Monteleone. And I want to make a special mention of our POP volunteers as well. They were instrumental in developing the website and the language to describe what the project and the mission are. And in particular, Karen Doherty, her writing is just fantastic, and you'll see it on the website, I'm sure. All right, now let me go back out and get back to my other side here. So I've run through clean energy events and with Plastic Ocean Project and Solar Water Relief Bahamas. Part of what I also wanted to present and talk about is that, you know, we've been talking about collecting the materials and sending it to processing at these centralized facilities. And I think this is the wrong approach. I think this is a distributed problem that requires a decentralized solution. And it really needs to be focused on the ecology, and in that we should be coordinating around compassion, community, and commerce, not to be confused with capitalism, which we'll talk about in just a second. We also need to be engaged in mutual aid and reciprocity, right? We need to provide to people the things that they need, and in turn accept from them what we need. And this is a really important thing to remember, is that we have to be focused on community. And the solution to our common problem is solidarity, right? We hear it throughout the messaging from all the people today, you know, is that we're working on this one problem, but it's actually, we see it as part of another problem, right? It's not just that the plastic is accumulating. The problem is not just a plastic accumulation. What it really is a petroleum consumption problem. And so it's really important to talk about it and to see that all these different issues are interrelated, right? So solidarity is something we have to talk about, I think, as well. And when we talk about addressing these problems, you know, introducing, as I said, with solar water relief, we want to introduce local control of water and electricity. And this is an essential starting point for community security, right? Any community that has control of its own water and electricity has a baseline for economic activity. And so this is really essential point I want to have brought into the discussion as well. And in talking about you know, how we move towards plastic to fuel, and as I'm saying, I'm advocating for a decentralized solution because it's a distributed problem, but island nations require special assistance, right? They are a special part of our community. They are isolated in many ways, but they also provide special resources, right? They're providing us right now, as I said, the leadership and the generating the thought leadership that we need on how to address these problems and how to change course, right? And island nations, you know, I'm Irish, you know, I come from an island nation as well, and but they're seafarers, right? They know that, you know, if you are facing a storm, you're facing, you know, dangerous conditions, you change course. And we are in dangerous, uncharted waters, right? We're collapsing the ecology, we're collapsing the carrying capacity of the planet to restore the ecology. And we need to change course. And I think the island nations can really provide that as well as the new directions. I mentioned part of what I'm here is to kind of cheerlead, and insurmountable challenges require unyielding determination, right? And we are all in good company here. Anybody that came to this is determined to face this problem. And so look, I want to make sure that we all connect and we all establish networks together and create a community, a counterculture, right? Because we have to counter this dominant culture that's saying that consumerism is what our highest social attainment can be, right? It isn't consumption. Consumption is not what our lives should be about. Our lives should be about art and beauty and honoring truth, right? That's what our lives are about. It's not about consuming products, right? And so I want to remind everyone, when you're eating an elephant, right, you still do it one bite at a time, right? So don't worry if it doesn't seem like we're making a dent, right? This is an elephant we're eating, right? So we all have to take a small bite and just keep biting away and keep eating away, and we'll eat this elephant. We can beat this problem, right? Another idea that I want to talk about is, are we playing leapfrog or whack-a-mole, right? And leapfrog, to me, a great corollary is in telecommunications, or now in electricity generation and distribution, is that, with telecommunications, the technology finally advanced. We didn't need landlines, right? So we didn't have to put in the landlines. Everyone had radio communications in cell phones, right? And so developing world is able to leapfrog beyond the landline technology, right? And so so too with electricity and water, right? We can provide a distributed solution, so we don't have to have centralized plants and the inherent inefficiencies in distribution after processing, right? Instead of processing on site. And then the other concept is whack-a-mole, right? Are we banning straws, but we're allowing the increased consumption of plastic films, right? We don't want to hit one part of the problem. We've got to address the entire problem. And the problem is really, to me, is in many ways a cultural and social one as well, right? Right now we're training everyone into consumerism, right? And what we need to be training people in is producerism, right? And when I say that we need to achieve solidarity in these disparate movements, right, I'm talking about cannabis legalization is a primary one that we all need to address and adopt, right? These very same corporations that were involved in making cannabis illegal, they thrive because they denied cannabis in the market, and they were able to take over those existing markets that cannabis was supplying: fiber, lubricants, fuels, foods, pharmaceuticals. All those things were eliminated from the market, and these other corporations were allowed to introduce competing products that would have never been able to establish themselves, right? So we need to identify that cannabis is a big part of the solution to reversing the use of plastics, because it competes directly with many of the plastic products. Also, it's a method for identifying where corporations have been in league with the state against the benefit of the people. So moving on, I'd like to just touch on that, how we use corporations. And I'd invite everyone to take a look at this organization, POCLAD, which is a program on corporations, law, and democracy. So when we had the American Revolution, one of the aspects that they were fighting against was the use of corporate charter to control regions and regional economies. And this is borne out by the fact that after the revolution, and corporate charters had to be established in a state legislature, and they had to be renewed generally every 7 years. They had a prescribed amount of profit they were allowed to do. And generally they were only allowed to be formed to create bridges or other things that were of public good. And over the course of 150 years, until they had a breakthrough, the corporation lobby, so to speak, did, with the advent of the railroads, were able to create enough influence to establish precedent that corporations had the rights of human beings, had the rights of citizens, right? So how we use corporations is really important discussion as well, because they're controlling the economy by controlling, or rather corporations are able to control our economy through legal and policy means, right? So So ecology, I want to really touch on this because everyone has been talking about, around the subject of ecology, and we talk about sustainability, and we talk about all these other things that potentially can be described as euphemisms for ecology. And ecology is a study, to me, is the study of the natural living world and the environment. But one of the things I learned today that I really wanted to mention, and I think is a really great way of describing ecology and what the philosophy of ecology, promoting ecology, means, is to harmonize human behavior with the natural world. And that's from Nina Butler earlier today. And I just think that's such a beautiful way to describe ecology, or the pursuit of ecology, is to harmonize human behavior with the natural world. And so in ecology, right, we see that what we consider to be, a poor ecology, or a destroyed ecology, is one with very little activity, and not to be confused with climatic, but climactic, the climax of an ecology, right, might be defined by the largest community of organisms circulating the largest amount of materials, energy, and exercising the most amount of work on the environment, right? And so in terms of, and I would invite everyone to read Peter Kropotkin, who I consider to be the father of ecology. He was a biologist and studied bees in Siberia. And so as we move ecology towards the human condition, we start to describe it in terms of the highest level of cooperation, mutual aid, and reciprocity, right? In comparison to, and in that, right, how the ecology and how the human condition interacts with the ecology in the natural world, we would say it was economics, right? How we convert the natural world into what we need for the human condition, and what we and how we meet the human needs, right? And an aspect of economics, or a way in which we describe systems in economics, would be capitalism, and that's how we define who has ownership of the conversion of the natural world into wealth and into accumulated aggregate wealth over time, right, is capital. And that's a conversion of the natural world and human labor into wealth that can be accumulated and transferred over time, right? And so capitalism is really a story about who owns the world and who has the right to decide what we do with the world, right? And then corporatism is the belief and the use of corporations to subsume the activity and the rights of the state and the citizenry, and take over control and functions of the state and control the economy. So I would like everyone to consider this question: why can we not talk about those things, right? That's what's driving so many of these problems, is the story we tell ourselves about who owns the world, who owns the sun, who owns the ocean, right? That's the story that we've been listening to. We need to tell a new story. And so I want to close, my TED talk here and my cheerleading session with, the idea that there's a renewed initiative in 2021. We've all come out of this very troubling year. And I invite you to join our work, and you can find us here at these websites. We're working on delivering the solar water relief equipment in 2021. We continue our work at Clean Energy Events and at the Plastic Ocean Project. And we can get into it in the conversation afterwards, but we're working on incorporating the reactors from POP into the solar generator, and continue to do demonstrations, but also move towards a functioning prototype for plastic to fuels. And just to give everyone a little tantalizing tidbit, we intend to put it through equipment and non-combustion. So we'll be putting it through the liquid fuel through another reaction, converting it directly to electricity with some emissions, but it would be about 40% of combustion in conventional generators. So a lot of exciting stuff this year in 2021. And I just want to thank everyone that put this on. It's been a fantastic day. I've learned so much, and happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Well done, Mac.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Did anyone's head just explode like mine? Amazing.
When you said counterculture, I was holding on to my seat. But, actually, if it's okay, Mac, the portable, affordable, solar-powered reverse osmosis systems to be deployed after natural disasters, instead of deploying these single-use plastic packaged or bottled water pieces that we continue to find, not just in the Caymans, but we found them here. How close are we to making that a reality, and what can we do to help facilitate getting that to be mainstream response to these types of natural disasters?
Yeah, so our organization, we raised about $2,000. We had a budget of $50,000 to send the 2 units to the Bahamas, and we fell far short of that fundraising goal. And the team became, lost inertia, and especially during the pandemic, we've lost inertia. But we're coming back together now, and we intend to take the lessons learned. We sought out some collaboration with other organizations that were already deploying large-scale reverse osmosis, and they shared a lot of information with us. What that indicated to me is that our granular approach and having it mobile and unitized, already pre-assembled, and be able to roll it off the ship had a variety of advantages. But I still think that we need to go even smaller, potentially go to a much more granular size, because even on the CM6, which is the large ones that I showed you, you'd still have to have a central location. People would still have to come there to get the water. The smaller that we can make them, the more distributed they can be. They can still be powerful enough to provide, a large volume of water, enough for 4 to 10 people in emergency situations. And so the technology is very mature. Everything is commercial, off the shelf. The reverse osmosis systems are widely used on blue water cruising ships and boats. So we're very close in terms of a technical solution, but it really came down to a funding issue. And we just raised we had a donor that put in $1,000, and we'd raised about $1,200, and that same supporter just sent another $1,000. So we have $2,000 that we're starting with basically again right now.
The Red Cross needs to embrace this. I mean, you think about all the people they're sending, even if it was small enough to take care of the people that are taking care of the people, it's an investment well to their advantage. So
Well,
I feel like that's a crossroad we need to try to connect with.
yeah, I agree.
There are some questions that have popped up throughout the presenters, and also, Blood, I don't know if you're back on and able to wanted to finish your remarks. But I don't know, Lisa, I'm gonna go off script here, so get nervous. But given sort of that amazing discussion we just had, I think it's totally cool if people want to unmute and say some cool stuff along those lines instead of entering the chat. We'll try to get to those questions that were asked too, but I think especially maybe Kay, or Blood, if you have some final thoughts, and then maybe feel free to unmute yourself and end of the day get on board and talk a little bit too.
Yeah, damn it. Okay, so I have to start by apologizing that I didn't showcase this nice presentation that I prepared, and I'm glad that my colleague was able to fill in the time, and I like what Mac is doing, and I like the way he worded, and Mac's work is matches what I've been talking about, when humanitarians flood a community with their own idea, and they don't even include the locals. And if my presentation was the only thing I was going to try to drill into people's head is when you go to a place trying to help, is you have to ask the locals what do they need, and because once you leave, they're the one who's gonna have to deal with whatever infrastructure that you implemented, whatever idea, regardless if it's great. If you're not including the locals, you ain't doing anything. You're wasting. And so when there are relief efforts like that, the American military goes to those places, and Red Cross and UNICEF and what have you, they go with single-use package products, um, and they they create more chaos than the actual disaster itself. I'm kind of exaggerating here, but you get it. It's that way. We should consider going that way, like Lisa asked. How can we bring this the to the to the right attention, so that can be the first or the best option to the mainstream uh, action takers and the relief efforts. And so, yeah, you have to find ways to reduce your reduce costs by and including the local can not only reduce the actual cost and the doing of things, but actually ensure the long-term durability of your efforts. So my presentation was going to be about how my organization is working with the locals, and that's why for the past 5 years we've been a long-lasting initiative.
Great.
Yeah, and that reminded me of a couple of notes I wanted to touch on also. I mentioned that, we have a the plastic problem is a petroleum consumption problem. And, I'm an ecologist, I'm a peace activist. One of the things we need to talk about also is that here in the United States, our government has been waging a worldwide war for 19 years, right? And we've been at war for 19 years, attacking all over the world. And the United States military is one of the largest consumers of not only petroleum as a fuel, right? They're consuming 25% of our total consumption in the United States. They also are a huge consumer of plastic products and plastic components and PFOA and PFAS, which are also petrochemicals, right? So I want to make sure we mention that in terms of solidarity, at least for me, it means that we have to end the war, right? Because this kind of militarism, this war where our economy is based on the war, that is a facet of consumerism, right? And it's the largest facet. They're consuming the largest amount of petroleum as fuel of any single consumer, right? So we have to get control of that policymaking as well. We have to end the war if we want to reduce that single largest individual consumer. And I think this really speaks to what Bleda was just saying about the heavy-handed approach that occurs when we send in the military. So. And then I also had one other note I wanted to mention. Nina was saying, it was sharing a lot of resources with us about how to decide on consumer product choices and those kinds of things. And this is something that I think a lot of us struggle with is we benefit from these systems, that we benefit from the infrastructure that's in place, right? And this could be on a macro level, right? We benefit from systemic racism, or we benefit from the legacy of enslavement, right? Or we benefit from the use of petrochemicals, right? We benefit from the citizenry we possess, right? And it's important that we don't become prisoners of our own hypocrisy, right? We can dissent, and we can make a moral choice, right, without becoming a prisoner of our own hypocrisy, whether that's a high level of hypocrisy, a direct choice you made or not, right? We don't have to continue, and we can change all of those behaviors at any time. So I would really hasten everyone to remember that, to be kind to yourselves and to kind to everybody, right? We all are facing these same difficult choices, and make it very important not to become, as I said, a prisoner of our own hypocrisies.
Well said. Before I jump into a couple of questions, just want to give anybody an opportunity on the call to unmute and have any comments or thoughts.
I'd like to just say that if anybody wants to learn more about Kai Blada Recycling's work in Haiti, the website is it's really easy to remember. It's KAYBLADA.com. That's KaiBlada.com.
Okay.
Okay. So Bill, a couple questions for you. One is, could you tell us a little bit more about some of the efforts around the ban? And is there any thoughts so far about, what would be the substitutes? I know that you had mentioned, maybe target styrofoam at first, but what are the alternatives that are being advocated for as part of that ban?
Yeah, first of all, Mac and Blada, you're speaking my language. I just love just listening. It was nice. Yeah, as far as the policy change, we're lucky because the Bahamas have banned plastic bags, certain types, and then Jamaica went on a full-on ban of multiple items. So we've been kind of looking at their successes and failures, and kind of targeting like what policy would work for us. We actually have many stakeholders at the table, including DART, which Lisa mentioned in the chat. DART is one of the largest styrofoam producers or polystyrene producers in the Caribbean. And they obviously ship out to Southeast Asia mostly, but obviously they supply, I should say, polystyrene, similar to those solo cups that college students love throughout the world. But anyway, they are actually at the table, and surprisingly, last spring, right before COVID hit us, they agreed to the policy change, which would ban 5 to 6 specific items, which are still being debated, by the way. Anything from, straws to different size plastic bottles to different cutlery and different bags. So there's a lot on the table. We're still in discussions, but the key, and this goes back to what Blada was saying, is local community buy-in and youth advocacy. I can't stress this enough because I think that as adults, we often, we forget native wisdom, and we also forget the ends of our spectrum, the youth and the elders that hold immense wisdom that almost goes untapped for whatever reason. And I think that having the youth advocates there at the table changes the discourse completely. So I recommend anyone working on policy, whether it's at a local, state, or national policy, to get youth involved, because they're going to inherit this and we need to teach them skills. So my big thing is youth empowerment. And that goes back to the next question that I read here from Lisa. Just figuring out ways of educating students, but empowering them in a way where their voice matters. So it starts as a simple beach clean, and then asking them to come back and then host their own, or come back and educate others. And then before you know it, their confidence grows where they want to get more involved. So I can't tell you, there's kids lined out the door who are like willing to help on this issue here in Cayman. And then it was very inspiring to connect with youth all over the Caribbean to see what they're working on Very inspirational. And I could share some links there, and check out Ocean Heroes Bootcamp. There's tons of students around the world working on plastic solutions.
And Alonj, that question was also posed to you as well, to talk a little bit about some of the education efforts in Haiti.
Yeah, so actually, I think I said that in my presentation also. What we are doing is we have like, we are making training in school and orphanage for children on how they can recycle their waste, and then why it's important to not producing a lot of waste in their environment, or sometimes when they have something, a plastic bottle in their hand, to not throw it anywhere on the street in Haiti. And then also on social media, the work that Bypass is doing is to influence people on, and then teach people on all bad consequences that waste can have on people's health, and then why it is not good to just use waste, and then to just throw waste everywhere. So I think it is like that for biogas, and then we are continuing doing that in Haiti, and then in school, in orphanage, and sometimes with young who are very interested in that, we're organizing conference of sometimes conference for young in the country on waste management.
Awesome. And then while we have you unmuted, quick question about, I think that this one was answered in the questions, but just to kind of put it on the recording, somebody asked you how long you had been making the pavers and how did you think they would hold up compared to traditional pavers? And then Mac also had a question for you about, have you looked at the energy or electricity or water usage that goes into making the product?
Well, we started transforming plastic into paving stone last year. That is actually 1 year that we started that. And then the story is that we made of them on them. They are very more resistant than concrete pavers, two times more resistant than concrete pavers. So they are very resistant because plastic can stay a long time in the environment. When we are producing our papers, we don't really use water. It's just plastic and then sand that we are using. And for the production process, um, we are using briquette made with paper. I don't know if you do that. Not that people in Haiti, we are recycle paper, and then we are making briquettes with them, and then uh how can I say that, a material where we are putting plastic, and then we make plastic with sand, and then after we have a paper. Maybe you can visit our site also at bioplastic.com, and then anyone who would like to know more about that can connect with me. I will let my information in the chat, and then we will know more about how to do it.
Can I say one more word about what Nelange was saying? It, she 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 started saying that they use briquettes. Briquettes.
Yeah.
It's a new way that Haitians are using to as an alternative to charcoal. You know how people cut trees to make charcoal as an energy source to cook, and so there's a group of people uh, who come up with this idea where they collect paper and cardboard and they kind of wet it and press it, make this it's a kind of cube that's provided as an alternative to charcoal. It works. It's great, and that's what Nelange used as energy source to melt her plastics.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rada, for adding that.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you for clarifying that. So we are right about 4 o'clock, which is our endpoint today. And we are going to start back here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And so, you know, Lisa had just sent me a message in the chat about some of the words and themes that she found super inspirational for today. So Lisa, I'm going to steal a page out of Bill's book and say, tell us some words in the chat as we sign off for today, that you know, you felt were impactful, or phrases that you wrote down. Like, I've written down so many things in quotes, like artivism, like these things I've never heard of. I never knew what an air curtain burner was either, Lisa, but and let's see, I got some quotes from Bon Bon in here, but so write some words or phrases that you've heard today, and maybe Lisa, you can read us your list as we sail off into the sunset for the day.
Sure. Just some common threads throughout the day were solidarity, community, collaboration, of course, which is our kind of main theme at the symposium, circularity, compassion, counterculture, which I haven't heard since maybe sometime in the 90s. And the main overall, of course, was refuse. Refusing is number one, top of the hierarchy, just refusing those consumer goods. And then, of course, certainly that great quote from Nina, and harmonize human behavior to the natural world, was also something I gravitated towards.
Well, you know, mine was from Mac, when he said we're not actually consuming whatever comes into this packaging. We're actually consuming petroleum, which is an eye-opening statement to me, because as I give that example of the water sachet to the water bottle, it's like I'm actually buying the piece of plastic instead of buying the water. I thought I was buying the water, but I'm being sold on the piece of plastic. So
Yep.
Thank you, Mac.
Good one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, this is stuff I'm sharing that people have shared with me. So, you know, I have a wonderful community of people that help educate me all the time. And I really enjoyed meeting you, Kay, and Bill and Heather, everyone, Nalanj, and Lisa. Always a pleasure to work with you. I miss the Earth and Surf Festival days too. Those were great events. I mean,
fun.
awesome. Yeah. The yoga on the beach and the cleanups. Those were good days.
And the solar powered live music, Mac.
That's right.
That's the only way to go.
Yeah.
Well, before I sign
Yeah.
off, I want to say my magic word for today was reciprocity. And that's such a great word. And I never use it, but every time I hear it, it just sings to my soul. And today is just such a really great example of reciprocity. So thanks for using the word that I love, Mac.
You're welcome. Yeah. Yeah. I just so humbled to be with all of you, and just really energized from the interaction. So thank everyone. Thank you all.
Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow.
All right. That sounds good. All right. Good night, everyone.